Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. It's Wuhan here, it's so hard. Okay, let's begin. In chapter 46, we delve deeper into the mechanics of pleasure and discomfort within the framework of G-wave theory. We have repeatedly mentioned the subg of the pleasure-seeking G. Once this subg is activated, it results in pleasure. This pleasure can be release of neural signals, the action of neuron transmitters like dopamine and or a combination of these and other factors. Regardless of the specific mechanism, we can refer to it as the pleasure G wave generated by the activation of this sub-G. This pleasure G wave is a crucial factor in promoting approach behaviors. For example, a child reaching for candy might think about how delicious the candy is, or a child reaching for a toy might think about how fun the toy is. In some cases, the subject may not be consciously aware of this pleasure before the behavior occurs, such as habitual teeth brushing. This is simply because the corresponding G wave has not significantly entered the G wave display area. The same principle applies to the sub-G of the avoidance G. Once this sub-G is activated, it results in discomfort. If we roughly categorize pleasure based on the local activation or intensity of the sub-G into comfort, delight, pleasure, joy, excitement, ecstasy, etc., then we can categorize discomfort into annoyance, tension, boredom, sadness, fear, terror, etc. Similarly, the discomfort G wave generated by the activation of this sub-G is a crucial factor in promoting avoidance behaviors. Some avoidance behaviors occur when this sub-G is slightly activated, regardless of whether the subject is consciously aware of it. For example, a woman might reject a man's romantic advances without knowing why she rejected him. Is this really the case? The subjects of the pleasure-seeking G and the avoidance G have entirely different effects but share the same principles. Essentially, they are instinctive Gs formed through continuous evolution in organisms. These instinctive G vary in form and complexity among different animals, but their principles are the same. The mechanisms of these G activities can be elucidated by studying the approach avoidance mechanisms in um, and unicellular organisms. Since these sub-G are instinctive Gs, they can participate in species inheritance and are not easily reshaped. Since they participate in inheritance, people's reactions to disasters or praise are often similar. Since they are not easily reshaped, the distribution of these subgroups in the brain or neural tissues is likely to have a relatively fixed material basis. However, not being easily reshaped does not mean they cannot be reshaped. They still be adhere to the plasticity of genes. An important piece of evidence is that these subgenes form numerous gene connections with uh, various post postnatally formed genes due to simultaneous activation effects. As mentioned at the beginning of this book, environmental G waves are absorbed, resulting in experiment, experiential G's or simulated experiential G's. One of these subGs is the result subG. When the result subG is formed, it often activates the pleasure subg of the discomfort subg. For example, when an elementary school student is praised by the teacher for helping others, the pleasure subg is activated. Thus, the experiential uh, G of helping others forms a G connection with the pleasure sub-G. Similarly, when a dog accidentally eats a certain food, the deliciousness of the food activates its pleasure sub-G. Thus, the experiential G of eating that food forms a G connection with the pleasure sub-G. Conversely, if the food a dog eats is spoiled, the taste of the food activates its discomfort sub-G. Thus, the experiential G of eating that spoiled food forms a G connection with discomfort sub-G. What happens after these G connections are formed? After formation, they influence the subject's future behaviors. At the beginning of this book, we broadly mentioned the tiger G or banana G. Undoubtedly, after the discomfort to pleasure sub-G forms a corresponding G connection with the experiential G, it naturally becomes a, sub G of that experiential G. In other words, it contributes to the formation of G's like the tiger G or banana G, thereby influencing the calf's, future response to tigers and the monkey's future response to bananas. Additionally, note that in this paragraph, we have again applied the principle of combinability and multi-significance of G's. Once an experiential G forms a G connection with a type of sub-G, meaning a new response pattern is formed, we can broadly say that a new G is formed. This new G will be activated in the future when the experience is about to be repeated. In other words, the corresponding pleasure or discomfort sub-G will also be activated, promoting corresponding approach or avoidance behaviors. Therefore, the pleasure G wave or discomfort G wave is likely closely related to the motor instinctive G that, that leads to the behavior. However, is it sufficient for the pleasure or discomfort sub-G to be activated to promote behavior? If so, it would definitely be a frenzied or panicated behavior like bloody, step, stupid, or the panic-driven house buying frenzy of contemporary people. Typically, the implementation of approach or avoidance behaviors not only requires the activation of the pleasure or discomfort sub-G and the release of G waves, but also the guidance of current sensory G wave inputs to produce more refined behaviors. If the if the implementation process involves the action of the common sense verification G or other experiential G's in the brain, the behavior is more likely to be wise. As for the interaction mechanisms among the pleasure or discomfort G waves, sensory G waves, and other G's during the implementation process, that is another fascinating topic altogether. Oh, it's so hard. How do you feel, guys? See you next time. Bye bye.